Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Some trademark Call of Duty drama today between Doug, Censor, Martin and Pierce, Gunless, Helmet. Some challenges drama, no doubt about it. Doug comes out with a leaked screenshot from Scrims, revealing, it seems, the team that he actually was playing against. Gunless not so happy about this. Doug then comes back with an interesting reply. Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Firstly, some scrims going around elsewhere as well. We saw FaZe Black. They were scrimming a fair few teams over the last couple of days. They played Heretics. We also, of course, saw the Houston Spartans, that's Temp's team, play FaZe, the main FaZe. And that didn't end particularly well. But we did see FaZe Black play Los Angeles Guerrillas as well. CDL Stats, JurNii, he didn't quite see the game one. But the other games were pretty interesting. Guerrillas, of course, we've seen what they've done so far in the Pro League. The question has always been, how good are the top Challengers teams with respect to those Pro teams? Especially when, unfortunately, this year, there's no Pro-Am, at least to our understanding right now. Last year, the year before, there was some sort of Pro-Am tournament where, you know, last year it was the first major of the season. Raleigh, the teams could go. The year before, in Vanguard, there was actually a Pro-Am event which was designed for this very purpose. This year we don't really know, but it's obviously understandable that some of the top challenger teams will be on par, if not better than, some of the pro teams. So you can never read too much into scrims, but, you know, some split maps here between FaZe Black and Los Angeles Guerrillas and an LA Guerrillas team, let's not forget, that has done very well at the start of the season. They've been competitive in most of the series they've played. They took down Thieves in a 3-0 slammage, let's be honest, and they probably should have beaten the Subliners, bar some interesting circumstances in the very first series they played. So yeah, FaZe Black looking good. Of course, that's the aCeem, Brack, Exceed, and let me not forget the final one, Crimp, of course, to round out that roster. But they will be looking forward to playing in the Challengers Cups this season. It's honestly kind of wild to me that all of these teams in Challengers, first of all, haven't blown it up yet, because I think some of these teams, I'm kind of surprised they've actually stuck it out as long as they have on the Challengers grind. Okay, I'm guessing you're not going to drop players over Christmas necessarily, and maybe that will change. But usually by now, there's been plenty of Challenger Cups, and usually there's been plenty of roster drama in the Challenger side. But I'm guessing because none of these teams have played on LAN yet, they want to give it a go, which makes sense really, and none of them have really played a proper tournament, because despite all that Daniel say and the guys at the CDL said as soon as the game was launching, oh yeah, don't worry guys, we'll have a Challengers update for you very soon. Here we are, near enough 2 months later, and nothing has been said. Crew says, Boston Challengers Major is 4 weeks away from from today, and we still have no season information or any idea if we're playing off MW3 or MW2 Pro points. That's an interesting one as well on how the seeding is going to work. Is it going to be based on last year, just because nothing's happened this year yet, so how can you really determine seeding and stuff? From last year, maybe, but that probably isn't the best idea. Is there going to be elite cycles? Are there going to be Challengers Cups? I don't know. It's just always how things go. They try and work things out. Game battles then get shut down by the higher-ups. They've got to move it over to Face It, is the present understanding. It takes time to do it. Then Christmas happens, New Year happens, and nobody does anything for like 2 or 3 weeks. So then it's early part of January, and everyone's trying to scramble together what's going to happen here. But I definitely feel for the Challengers guys that are really struggling at the moment, and we'll see some more examples of these players in just a couple of minutes' time. Some more hacking accusations as well. I gotta say, I feel bad for aBeZy here, because, you know, this poor guy, 2-time world champion, of course, one of the greatest SMGs in COD history, as Jake Hale points out. We know what Karma has to say on aBeZy's position, I suppose, in the all-time rankings, even compared to Aches we saw just the other day. And then this guy, user 666 ... a professional aimbot and script guy. He aims without knowing where people are, because his hacks will do the rest once the crosshair is on the guy. And aBeZy actually goes through and replies to these guys. I think it's kind of funny that, you know, poor AppMan, he's got to deal with the guys in the TikTok comments. So look, aBeZy's got to try and explain himself, but I think that reasonably enough, we kind of know what's going on here. Just before we get into the Doug versus Gunless stuff, I thought it was you know, cool to see some really innovative content as well. Okay, I know that Silent Library's been done in other formats in other places, but the fact that OpTic are doing this one, I thought was really cool to see. There were some interesting clips, let's say, emerging for this one from Pred, but also on the left-hand side here, Karma definitely deserves a note for what's going on, and Octane responded and said, you know, at Pred, I was unfamiliar with your game, so maybe this is, you know, maybe this particular GIF will have some usage points over the coming months. But let's talk about the Gunless versus Doug thing, because it was all kicking off, and Jetski, he's done it again, right? This guy, he manages to instigate it. Gunless does a tweet. He then gets Gunless to go one step further, and all of a sudden we have a bit of beef on our hands. And it all really begins from, well, this was the original tweet here. So Gunless says, no way I'm getting subtweeted over a scrim after not touching the sticks in 5 days for a Christmas break. Jetski says, well, you're subtweeting him back rather than replying to the guy who you're talking about. You know, what's going on? And Gunless then said, I would have tweeted back, but it got deleted. So then the original tweeter, of course, comes back in the replies. Now, this man, of course, was Doug Censor Martin. This was the original tweet. I don't exactly know what Doug tweeted as a caption, but whatever. He tweeted this screenshot out, then it was deleted. But, well, this is a question for you guys. Do you believe that Doug did this deliberately in terms of revealing which team they'd beat in this way, or do you think it was an accident? I'm more inclined to believe it was an accident, but you never really know. So it's quite often, right, what happens here is your players scrim against a certain team that's clearly been going on. This is Doug's team, the Boston Academy, with Censor, Pentagram, Craze, and JurNii. Of course, you know, many players on the Boston Academy over the last several years have been signed to the Pro League, right? Snoopy, you know, Beans obviously went up to the main team. Even Ghosty was there not that long ago. So this is their new roster. Doug, of course, is leading the way and drops 3 minutes of hill time here, which is, you know, look, even for Doug standards, that's pretty damn impressive. So Doug goes 11 kills, 7 deaths with 4 defense in 3 minutes, 2 seconds in the hill. Pentagram, Craze, JurNii closing things out. Not sure we can quite tell what map they're playing on here unless you guys can kind of read the background. But anyway, 250 to 69, 70 point cover the other team. Now, usually what happens here is they don't really want to reveal who they scrims. They don't want to roast the guys that went, you know, some guy went 5 in 20, some other guy went 6 in 13. So usually, okay, Doug does his nice face here on the bottom right-hand side, but they won't try and reveal who they played against in this particular set of scrims. But actually, if you really zoom in here to the bottom left-hand side, you'll see that the blurring that Doug has done doesn't quite cover the bottom. And, you know, okay, it's small on the screen, but if you really zoom in, you can see that it basically says classic. You can just about tell that this was classic. So then Doug deleted it, supposedly because he was like, oh, my mistake, guys. But obviously people are wondering whether this was actually, did he just leave a little teaser in there deliberately, just because, you know, no one who's just slammed another team and has dropped 3 minutes in the hill really wants to just completely, you know, they would love to get the clout of saying who they beat, you know, that's just how it goes. So I don't know whether you think this is a deliberate or not, but Gunless certainly thought that it was, and Classic is teaming with, I believe this is still the roster. As I say, I'm semi-surprised that we haven't seen more changes in challenges, because the team of Temp, Prolute, Spartan, TJ are still together. That's the Houston Spartans, and then these guys, Gunless, Paulex, Decimate, and Classic. That was the roster at the start of December. I'm guessing it's still the roster now. But anyway, Classic and Gunless are clearly still teaming, because that's why Gunless goes on this absolute tirade. So Gunless then wasn't happy about this and says, there's no way that you're subtweeting me about this. I went on a Christmas break. I come back for 1 day, haven't even touched the sticks for 5 days. And, you know, you're roasting us because we got 70 point clubs and actually revealing it to the timeline accidentally, I suppose. Well, at least that's the way that Censor saw it. So then Gunless like, I would have tweeted back. The Doug then replies, this sounds extremely whack. I wanted to blur your names to show respect, but then I realized one name wasn't blurred and I went on to delete it. Then we get the further replies, and it's just beautiful that these are all still alive. Actually, you know, I screenshotted all this, as you do, just to make sure that I didn't miss it for the morning, but you know, we're back again. So Gunless is nappy, just got back from Canada yesterday, not having been on the toy for 5 days. You're posting screenshots of it to gain dope. If you wanted to show respect, you wouldn't have said anything like what, which is probably a fair point from Gunless, really. But I don't know if this interaction reflects particularly well on either of them, but Doug then claps back, you know, you're so soft over this, Charmin Soft. I keep it real, all you had to do was DM me if you were offended by a joke where we blocked your names out. We're grown men, bro, regain. Which is, you know, I think this is fair enough. But I will say from Doug's point of view, I often think this, right? If there's an issue with something, if somebody has a problem with a tweet or with anything, you know, just DM them first. You don't always need to take things publicly immediately. And Doug is also guilty of this, I'll be honest, because it wasn't long ago where the BPL drama was going down, and instead of maybe DMing easyMac about it and DMing some of the other pros about it, you know, he made it public, and then it became a bit of a drama point, and thankfully we've all moved on from that now. But I think everyone's kind of guilty at this at some point of saying, oh no, DM me, bro, if you had a problem with it, but then people still kind of do it themselves. So it is what it is, but I still think Doug's kind of right on this point. It's just everyone's kind of a hypocrite on this, I think, at the end of the day. So Gunless's response is like, Doug, you of all people are allowed to call people soft when you tweet things like this on the daily. So I guess what Doug is getting across here is that, for example, this tweet where Doug drops like 4 kills and still wins because his teammates carried him or because he had some good hill time or whatever, Doug then, you know, obviously Doug was getting roasted for this, and Doug's, you know, defending himself, and maybe Gunless thinks that he's being pretty soft for doing so. so, and also just getting slammed. So Censor comes back, you're soft. Gunless then roasted, being a bit of a moron, really, and says, I knew intellect wasn't your strong suit and this would be a losing battle, arguing with you. And, well, Doug just signed off and says, all right, man, enjoy the rest of the holidays. So this was the full Twitter tirade here. Entertaining stuff, as always, in the Challenger side. I get the frustrations from both of these guys' point of view, and I often think that what happens with Challengers players is that, you know, small things don't exactly get overblown, even though, you know, I think maybe this was somewhat overblown, just because it's frustrating down there, I imagine, right? You're grinding in Challenges, you're trying to get a spot back into the Pro League, especially for a guy like Gunless. And there's always talk, you know, Gunless and Beans had a bit of drama, didn't they, last year, something like that. Gunless was a player that was so good in his early days, Infinite Warfare, World War II, you know, Black Ops 4, every single one of those years at some point he was in contention, if not was, the best player in the game, winning multiple championships, MVPs. Then things started to go south for Gunless. Obviously, it was the Vanguard season, right, where the Los Angeles Guerrillas team, he had to step out with an illness. Spark comes in, they win at events. Then Gunless comes back, was never quite the same. So in terms of results and stuff, and arguably in terms of performances as well, many people would say, including myself, I'd love to see Gunless back in the league. I think he's a very talented player. And on his day, obviously, a far more talented player than, you know, Doug Martin has been. But in terms of accolades, in terms of results, Doug's achieved a lot in his career as well. But at the present day, there's an argument as to which one is more impactful in their respective teams. But I think both players get, you know, understandably, I think all players in Challengers get frustrated, especially with the stated challenges, and also maybe the lack of CD opportunities on the horizon, especially because Gunless we thought was going to go to Gorillas, and now that never happened. Speaking of Gorillas, though, they are dead last in team hold percentage. So this is a pretty interesting stat. This is being defined as total points scored when winning the rotation out of the total possible points on that particular hard point. So if you win the rotation is when you score the first point, which is, okay, not the best way, but it's probably the best way to track it. And for example, OpTic have won 32 rotations and scored 1,135 points on those hills out of a possible 1,888 of those particular hills. So they would have had 60.1%, which is the number they get. The actual best team in hold percentage right now is technically Boston, which is kind of surprising given what we're seeing so far, but they do maybe play quite a lot of Terminal, and on certain maps, Terminal is definitely, one of the maps that's easier to hold the hill. So it is all kind of map pool dependent. But yeah, Gorillas, Ravens, Thieves, Rocker, not looking so pretty for them. The other way around, though, is break percentage, which is obviously more difficult to achieve. And you see numbers here that are generally more similar. But, and again, it is somewhat map pool dependent, because if you hate playing Terminal, this number is probably going to be higher. If you play a lot of Terminal, such as maybe Surge, this number is going to be lower, even if you're doing pretty well. So this, in some ways, is kind of like the opposite stat. Thieves actually top this up with Toronto, Subliners, OpTic, and surprisingly, FaZe are somewhat far down on this one. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you win all the rotations and you get all the time, then you don't necessarily need to break the hard point. So, you know, it goes either way, but I thought it was interesting to look at. Still, of course, very much early days in the season, but very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
All right, let's get a serious screen, fellas.
Babe, I think you could stand open that door right there.
Well, here's the thing, though, Ferris. You plant that rock there, MC can see that from library. So all you got to do is get the plant down, and that's why, worst comes to worst, we got Drazah as the last line of defense. He's back secure. And if MC dies in library, he'll just come in the library late.
Wait.